I'm 24. I grew up in Florida going on cruises with my family. Did my first one when I was about 9 years old. Did maybe 4 or 5 with them growing up. So when I decided to take my first ever solo trip last spring, a 7-day Norwegian cruise through the Caribbean, I figured a cruise was the safest possible way to do it. I already knew how they worked. I knew the layout, the routine, all of it. I felt comfortable before I even stepped on board. That comfort was the problem. The first 2 days were genuinely great. There are these solo traveler meetups on the ship in the evenings. I went to a couple, met some decent people, spent the days by the pool or at the buffet just doing whatever I wanted, with no schedule and no one to check in with. It felt freeing, honestly. That's where I first noticed him. Late 40s, always alone. Always seemed to be a few seats away from wherever I ended up sitting. By the pool, at the buffet, in the bar one evening. I told myself it was nothing. It's a cruise ship. You're all on the same floating box for a week. You see the same faces constantly. Normal. Day 3, we docked at St. Thomas. I did a beach excursion solo. Took a taxi with a group of other passengers to one of the main beaches. And he was there. Standing near the taxi line at the port, alone. Not with any group, not talking to anyone. Just there. I told myself, same ship, same port, same popular beach. Coincidence. Makes sense. Day 4 is where it stopped making sense. I was at the casino bar around 11 p.m., just unwinding before bed. He sat down 2 seats away from me and started making small talk. Friendly enough, nothing immediately off about it. Where was I from? Had I cruised before? Was I here with anyone? I told him I'd cruised with family growing up, but this was my first time doing it alone. He smiled and said, "I know. I can always tell." Then he asked how I was finding my cabin. And before I could even answer, he said, "The rooms on the 10th deck are lovely, aren't they?" I felt the blood drain out of my face. My key card was in my pocket. I had never told this man what deck I was on. I had never told anyone on that ship what deck I was on. I laughed it off, said something vague, finished my drink, and left a couple minutes later with a random excuse. Walked back to my cabin, telling myself he'd guessed, that the 10th deck was popular, that there was an explanation. I got into bed and lay there, staring at the ceiling. At 2 a.m., my door handle moved. Not a knock. The handle turning slowly, twice, deliberately. Then the sound of a key card being tapped against the reader, and the red light bleep of a declined entry.
Access denied.
Then, nothing. I froze. Then, a minute later, I got out of bed and looked at the peephole. Empty hallway. I stood there for 10 minutes, watching through that peephole before I went back to bed. I didn't sleep. I went to guest services first thing the next morning and reported everything. The handle, the key card attempt, the casino conversation, the deck comment. The woman I spoke to was polite, but I could tell she thought it was a drunk passenger trying the wrong cabin by mistake. She said they'd note it and have security review the hallway cameras. That evening, I came back to my cabin, and there was a note on the floor just inside the door. Ship stationery, the kind they leave in the desk drawer of every cabin. 4 words. You shouldn't have gone to guest services. I picked it up, hands shaking, and walked straight to the security office. This time, they took me seriously. An officer sat with me while he pulled up the hallway camera footage and scrubbed through it. At 2:07 a.m., there he was, standing like a mannequin outside my cabin door for a full minute, completely still. The officer paused momentarily when he saw the face. Then he told me the man had been flagged a previous season for identical behavior, befriending solo travelers, somehow obtaining their cabin information, making contact, and then eventually accessing their rooms. He'd been banned from the cruise line. He'd booked this sailing under a different name. Security went to his cabin immediately. I waited in the security office while they went. They came back 20 minutes later, and the officer's face told me everything before he even spoke. The cabin was empty. Completely empty. No belongings, no luggage, nothing in the bathroom. The bed hadn't even been slept in. It was like nobody had ever checked in at all. To this day, nobody has been able to explain where he stayed for the trip or where he went. The local authorities at the next port were waiting for someone who never came. I flew home 2 days early. Didn't care about the cost. I just wanted to go home. But what scares me is that he's still out there, and I've never heard from him again.